Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We're bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. This is the Markets Club podcast. We were talking on the balance sheet on Monday from the USDA with Donna Hughes and Arlan Sudermmann from Stonex Financial Services. Here's Donna and Arlan. We were talking on the balance sheet on Monday from the USDA with Donna Hughes and Arlan Sudermmann from Stonex Financial Services. How are you guys? Hope you guys doing well.
Doing well, thank you.
It's good to be back with you, Cesar.
Okay, let's discuss about the world balance sheet on Monday from the Department of Agriculture. We can talk about the corn acreage later. However, what is your thoughts on the balance sheet? Starting with Chief Arlan.
Well, as we look at the corn balance sheet, it comes in tighter than what the trade anticipated, projecting ending stocks for the 2025-26 marketing year of 1.8 billion bushels. The average trade guess was a little over 2 billion bushels, which is where I'm at as well. I think USDA is very optimistic in its export number at 2.675 billion bushels, considering that we already know the size of Brazil and Argentina's crops, which is going to provide considerable export competitiveness with us. One of the unanswered questions yet is whether we'll finally see the drought end in Mexico, allowing them to increase production. If not, we could have another strong export year to Mexico. But if drought does break and they start getting those rains, then that could further chew into our exports over the coming year. Regardless, it indicates to the market that these are what we're going to trade over the coming months. And so it would not take much of a weather event to create a need to ration demand in the eyes of the market. So that increases the likelihood that we'll have a weather rally at some point. My opinion is that unless there's solid, hard evidence that we're going to significantly reduce yield, we need to take advantage of those rallies when they come, with all the risks that we see in the tariff war, the trade war, to make sure we're protecting the equity that we've built in our farms over the recent years.
How about you, Donna? What is the technical aspects on the corn markets? It is stuck at 4.44, 4.45.
Yep, we've been seeing the new crop December just kind of floating around that area. Any kind of rally that we do get has taken us up like around 450, a little bit higher than that. Personally, with my clients, I have more than a few that are talking about the exact thing that Arlan touched on this morning in regard to weather conditions, especially in the Western Corn Belt. We're seeing some dryness there, and if that does persist, then that will contribute to, or should contribute to, seeing a bump in these markets.
Donna, how concerned about the fundamentals with the trade front on the beans markets?
On the beans, we've been looking for a higher trade, but, with the news that we've got over the past couple of days, obviously we saw some good downside to the market. So, producers they're trying to be patient to try to wait for that higher trade, thinking that we might get those bumps up at some point. But obviously, with days that we've had in the last couple, better to be proactive in looking at your protection, hoping that we can get more upside to the market.
What about the upside, Arlan?
Well, I think for both corn and soybeans, we have very little margin for error should we have a weather problem. And as Donna indicated, we do have higher odds of a weather problem this year. Just looking at the dryness, particularly in states like Nebraska, but really much of the western Midwest, where soils are still lacking in the moisture they need to get us through the growing season. And Nebraska is probably one of the driest of the major producing states, and they're one of our key production states as well. But the long range forecasts from many forecasters show risks of dryness for central and western parts of the Midwest. It would only take a 5% reduction in yield for either corn and or soybeans to require rationing. And so I do think that does open the door for some upside price opportunities. And for the end user, like the feedlot or the ethanol plant, they need to recognize that upside risk, price risk as well, and be attuned to that and be taking steps to mitigate that risk.
When we can look forward with the corn acreage in the year with the technical side, Arlan.
Well, a lot of times in the past, when the corn crop goes in fast, we end up increasing corn acres, and that.
Yeah. When we can look forward with the corn acreage in the year with the technical side, Arlan.
Well, corn acres typically increase when we have rapid planting, although now we're starting to see more soybeans planting early to get a higher yield advantage from that. So I'm not sure we're going to see the increase. There was some sense that when the trade war started, that might push even more acreage to corn this year than what was even indicated on the March 31 survey. I'm not sure we're going to see that big of an increase, additional bump above the March 31 numbers, particularly after getting the 90-day pause on tariffs. I think that eased some of the concerns, and as well as some indications that we may soon hear from the EPA about the increased RVO requirements for biomass diesel production, which could help diesel demand. And when you look at the May 12th USDA numbers and how tight the soybean balance sheet is, I think that has farmers thinking that perhaps they'll stick with their planting intentions as reported in March, and we'll probably stick with that acreage shift that we had at that point.
Do you have any concerns about the beans acreage, Arlan?
Well, it does leave us more vulnerable to a weather problem this year. Now, when USDA built its balance sheet, based on the fact that we already know what the size of Brazil's soybean crop is for this year, and we know what Argentina's crop is for this year, yields are coming in better than expected there due to late rains. And in Brazil, it was basically a record crop. I think it's going to be very difficult to hit USDA's export target. I think they're about 150 million bushels too high. So I believe that there is more cushion in the balance sheet long term than what USDA is currently showing. So while we're still vulnerable to a weather problem with the lower acreage, as long as our yield loss isn't too significant due to weather, I think we'll be okay because of lost export demand as China continues its multi-year shift toward increased supplies that are cheaper for it to buy because of currency exchange rates coming from Brazil and Argentina.
Do you have any final thoughts on the June report from the Department of Agriculture, Donna?
Well, I think, we're going to be watching to see what USDA does with the numbers between May and June. And obviously, weather is going to be watched very closely, going forward. And so we're early in the season as far as crop development, obviously, and a lot to watch and a lot to think about and look out for as we go forward.
What is your final thoughts, Arlan?
And I would just add to that, by the June 12th report, we should have a better handle on the weather pattern that's establishing for the Midwest, and that if it's showing that warmth and dryness, then we could start to see the markets trade that risk. If it's showing a more favorable pattern, then it would probably be taking some of that risk premium off. So I think that'll be a pivotal time for the markets.
Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank you, Cesar.
Cesar.
We've been talking to Donna Hughes and Arlan Sudermmann from Stonex Financial Services on the Markets Club podcast. I am Cesar Delgado.
Good to meet with you both. Do you need anything from me, Cesar?
Donna, could you send it to me?
Yes, I can do that, sir.
Thanks.
Have a good day, y'all.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Arlan,
thank you, Donna.
Too,
thank you, Sarah.
Well.
Thank you.
Thanks to Arlan Sudermmann and Donna Hughes from Stonex Financial Services. This has been the Markets Club podcast. I'm Cesar Delgado. You have a good day.